What are the elite of Kampala talking about? And more interesting for me, how are these conversations actually affecting government policy on the ground? Help me out understand this, though. You talk about the NRM like it's this amorphous thing, but it's also made up of elites.
So traditionally, the NRM is made up of elites and non-elites. That's the thing, like the magic of the dysfunction with Uganda is that it functions in its dysfunction. So when you look at if you look at it economically, for example, Uganda is one of the most successful African economies. That's the thing, like immediately the NRM wins the election. If they don't embark on a reform project, they will meet a Damascus moment by the next election.
Will it be with Museveni at the helm, or does he have to be pushed aside to let the reformers have their day?
I don't know what will happen. What I know is that consistently he's making less and less administrative decisions. Sunny, you've got to understand the Ugandan economy. It's a complex economy in the sense that it has rewarded some people massively and it's punished some people terribly. One, it's not true that we're governed by Rwandans. That myth needs to die. It really needs to die and it needs to go to bed completely. We are governed by Ugandans. It's not true that Banyarwanda are the ones successful in the Ugandan system.
This is the very, very best. I introduce the very, very next. Big deal. You know this is the big league. Sanga mumihanda ya chigari make a big fish. Word on the street to akaze. Habari gani mumeze mte. Yute chimi mana kuva hunda muchiye. If you want the long form, come close and double. Wait, what? The long form. What did he say? The long form. What? The long form. The long form. The long form.
Hello there. My guest this week on the Long Form podcast is Raymond Mujuni. Raymond, an award-winning investigative journalist, is currently the Deputy Director of the African Institute for Investigative Journalism. Raymond has spent over a decade exposing corruption, unpacking power, and telling the African story. And now he co-hosts Grab a Coffee podcast, Kampala's most talked about space for unfiltered elite conversation. In this episode, we discuss what the next generation of Ugandans is really fighting for. We also discuss fatherhood and the uneasy balance between privilege, protest, and purpose in today's East Africa. Hey everyone, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who've been a part of the long form journey. Every view, comment, and subscription has helped us grow and get to where we are today. But here's the thing, about 72% of the people who actually watch this podcast haven't subscribed yet. We want to keep bringing you even bigger conversations with even bigger guests, including, let's say, even the president of this country. But this milestone starts with you. Subscribing is free, but it makes a huge difference. It shows our guests that what we're building here matters and that it's worth their time appearing on my platform. So please help us and hit that subscribe button, and we'll promise to keep delivering powerful, meaningful conversations. Thank you so much. Now, let's get into the episode. Mr. Raymond Mujuni.
Yes, sir.
My fellow Mutoro.
Akiki. Eyao.
Eyange Niamoti.
Amoti. You see, welcome. Welcome home.
Thank you for welcoming me into your beautiful apartment here in Kitante.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. We are happy to have you.
I thought I would be in a lush garden, but we have some garden pictures.
I am young. I am not yet prosperous like all the people you've been interviewing, so I don't have a lush compound but that's one of the things that to get a property in the city, you've got to get a mortgage, and mortgages are very expensive.
Is it even
so? Our parents have been lucky because their mortgages were like 10-15%. For us, our mortgage is at 20%.
What's that about?
It's the cost of money. So money is very expensive to come by in Uganda. As a result, there's very few people saving, and because of very few people saving, there's very little money to give out. So the interest rates on it is really high.
I mean, that is a conversation back home, and I mean, right now, people back home are complaining that mortgages are
Yeah.
between 16 to 18%, and everyone's up in
Yeah.
arms.
Yes, I mean, many young people will not genuinely be able, on their salaries as they exist now, to afford any type of property or get to the property ladder.
I hear you. So tell me, we're not just friends; we're also podcast mates.
Great.
Grab a coffee.
Yes.
I attended your live session over the weekend.
Yeah.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
It was really cool. It was an interesting mix of Muzungus, locals, old, young. The guests were fantastic. I'll encourage everyone who's watching this to actually take some time and listen to the conversations on Grab a Coffee.
We're truly grateful. One, we're grateful you could make it.
I had to.
It's massively good that you were able to be in the room, but also to now have a culture where people infinitely wake up in their mornings and go and listen to conversations
on a Saturday morning.
Yes, and try and generate elite consensus on some things. So, and I think that's what the podcast succeeds at, generating some level of elite consensus on these are things on which we should have an agreement on. That's what we really want at some point. Or even if we're to have a disagreement, let us find out these are the things on which we disagree. This is the nature of the disagreement. How might we work towards solving that disagreement?
Talking about elite consensus, a few days ago, I think maybe a day after the podcast, you had it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Someone on Twitter wrote something like, Grab a Coffee podcast is where elites, are having conversations. So help me out here. On that note, what are the elite of Kampala talking about? And more interesting for me, how are these conversations actually affecting government policy on the ground?
That's a fair question. Maybe if we start from who are the elite of Kampala, and that's a really difficult one to get through on its own. For over 20 years, Uganda has had a free education system, UPE, which is the primary level, USC, which is the secondary level, and some fair amount of scholarships for university. As a result of that, so many people have been churned out. People who are literate, who are able to read and write. Those people who've been able to read and write have sort of entered an economy where there's just not enough jobs for everyone. There's just not enough opportunities for everyone. And as a result, Kampala became this small and micro economy enterprise where people who come out of school, who can't find jobs, then start a small job, a gig, a side hustle, and
drive Uber.
Yes. And in those side hustles, they then start to meet government policy either through action or inaction and realize that they do not have the power over government. Now, in Uganda, to win elections, traditionally, you've got to win rural constituencies. That's where majority of the voters have been, and I think they'll still be until the next election. More Ugandans are in the rural areas than there are in the urban areas. So those rural constituencies have often dictated government policy. So when you think of the NRM, NRA as it is today, the things they do, agriculture, it's a very rural enterprise, getting people out of poverty, which is a very rural enterprise. They're very uninterested in urban subjects. So you won't find the NRM spending or losing their sight over housing, fixing public transport, fixing public utilities. Those things are traditionally excluded. And the NRM's approach to them was, you guys have got a free market, figure it out, get the private sector to work.
Help me out understand this though. You talk about the NRM like it's this amorphous thing, but it's also made up of elites.
Yes, so traditionally the NRM is made up of elites and non-elites. Elites in the sense that there are people in the NRM who have genuine and actual power, and there are people in the NRM who have delegated power. The ones with genuine and actual power are so few. It's also that NRM in its electoral politics has very few people with power. The NRM that has power is NRM Civil Service or NRA cadres. And those are two different enterprises. The NRM as the political party and the NRA, which is the system. So you will often hear cadres saying, the politicians of NRM are messing up the NRA. So you never know which one to touch.
The NRA is the National Resistance
Army. Yes, that's the army.
Which does not actually exist anymore. Before we continue, as you're probably aware, every conversation we bring takes time, research, and sometimes plane tickets. We do it because we love sharing stories that matter. If you've enjoyed what we've built and want to help us grow even further, you can now support the long form directly. Feel free to donate to our Momo code 95462, registered under LF Media Limited. Every contribution, big or small, helps us go even further. Thank you.
We do not know if it doesn't exist anymore because the president calls upon it on some days. There are days when he says, we will revert to NRA methods to solve this problem. So that's created this crisis where, people in their rural constituencies then have such a foothold over policy. And even when you look at Uganda, we're an exceptionally young country. And because you have a young population, parents still have a lot of hold and a lot of sway over how people can and act or not act. As a result of that, you then find when the parent in the family dies, then the transition starts. And in there's also government policy, either by action or inaction. So conversations like property ladder. When a parent dies, then the people in the homestead immediately get onto the property ladder because the parent had a property. Then that property is distributed to maybe 4 people. And then they might fight over it. They might turn it over. So the question you asked me about elites in Kampala is that, if you say which elites pay taxes, 65% of our taxes comes from 1% of the population, and those are Asians. They have a huge say over manufacturing policy and industrial policy. Is there a place in government policy for urban issues? No, simply not, because the government has abandoned the urban areas for the opposition, saying, this is where the opposition generated consensus. The traditional thinking of the NRM is we need to remain competitive, but will not win the urban areas. As a result, issues that are urban in nature then do not get solved.
But all the leaders of the NRM all live in the urban centers that they ignore so much.
They do that from Monday to Friday, and then they spend the weekends on their large farms and ranches. And they think that the wealth is at the large farms and ranches.
So those conversations that you say having at grab a coffee, right? So sometimes it's you and Simon, going back and forth about different issues. And now over the weekend, it was you and your guests and a group of young people and an audience. So you're having these great conversations, right? So I'm listening to Ugandans have these conversations and very spirited conversations. And I'm thinking, there are a lot of solutions in this room. There are many change agents in this space. Who's listening to them? And what's the point? If no one's listening, if you're screaming into the wind, what's the point of it all?
That's a fair question. It's a really fair question. So the traditional makeup of politics and political elite, the people who have access in this city, is you've got to get your constituency, and once you have that constituency, you hold it against the state. So if you are like me and you go to Toro, you campaign in Toro, you become the big shot in Toro, and you hold the Toro constituency against the state of Uganda. So you say, if you guys do not fix our road, we will not vote you, we will not engage in government programs, and if you lose our vote, that might turn your fortunes electorally. That's how people traditionally prosecute their politics. Now, many young people are reaching voting age or realizing that they need to have consensus of their own, but that consensus is not represented in the political parties of the day. One, the NRM is seen as one. It's been here for long, so there's a lethargy. It's not attracting young voters. There's just that lethargy of you've governed for so long. Number two, it's not seen as the traditional place to find solutions. It's the party in power, but not the party with solutions. Number three, it's susceptible to influence from all manner of corners. So, and that influence can be people with money, other times can be people with guns. And there's also this just general sneeze with people saying, there's something that's happening in the NRM. Let me just wait and see what it is. Some people think that, there might be transition politics in the NRM. When they had their recent party primaries at the SEC level, in RPF terms, the topmost organ, there was this routing of all the traditional members of SEC. All of them were wiped out.
Other than the president.
Yes,
and
who didn't compete. Who didn't compete with anyone. So anyone who was subjected to an election was voted out. So there's also some level of transition happening there. When you go to the opposition, many people are afraid to be seen to belong to the opposition because there's violence meted out against them. Number two, it's seen as a point of anger. So people see and say, this represents my anger, but it doesn't represent the solution. And there's very little solutions being generated simply because of the nature of the way the state is dealing with them. So people are finding these small little urban corridors in which can we call the permanent secretary and talk to them in a small little corner. And that's how some policy sometimes works. Someone invites the permanent secretary to their home over lunch and they say, you really need to fix this road thing. You need to find a way to fix it. And that's how consensus gets generated. And then you take that to parliament, and then you have to bribe through parliament for it to work, and then it becomes policy. So it's been a very dysfunctional political system, but that dysfunction cannot be tolerated any longer because now those solutions must be found somehow.
And because you've said that politics here is about, I guess, your tribe, right? Not tribe in the traditional sense, but like the people surrounding you.
Exactly.
Right? So now back to the podcast, back to that young audience. Are you trying to, between you and Simon, are you trying to create a tribe that then you can be able to say that, listen, Mr. Permanent Secretary, this is what these thousands of young Ugandans are talking about, agitating for? Are you using it as a tool of entertainment, or I guess, are you using this podcast as actually a policy tool? Maybe a policy bat to kind of
No, so we don't have any political intentions with it. It's a platform. So the political intention is the platform.
All things are political, though.
Yes, they are political. So that's the thing. We're political in the sense that it's a platform for generating consensus. It's just a platform where policymakers come and realize there's a whole world they haven't interacted with. And that's the world of young and hungry Ugandans. So at the last live recording, for example, we had the Secretary of the Treasury who was amazed at how many people in the audience were telling him, you are doing this thing of sending money down to farmers through PDM. Farming is not going to turn around the fortunes of the country. There are young people in the city who just need money to continue entrepreneurship and then could pay enough taxes to go to the farmers. And just the appreciation in the room of the fact that we could be getting a priority wrong is a good thing. We had a podcast with the governor of the central bank where people spoke back and said, look here, we think the housing problem is also a central bank problem because the interest rates are largely, by and large, a central bank problem. So can you find a way of opening up this economy so that more people can save, and then we can get a housing plan put up together? And immediately after that podcast, of course, he picked up the phone, called the head of the pensions, and the head of the pensions and him started working out something. So for us, it's a platform to say, look here, listen, there are people who have solutions. There are people who think that you need to listen to them a little bit more. And we feel genuinely, Simon and I, that we've reported in this city long enough to know that politicians just do not have big enough ears to hear everyone.
Which is crazy for me because the system I come from, I cannot imagine, again, I've had the governor of the central bank last day. I think I had our former governor, John Rwanda, on the podcast. But never did I think that I needed to tell him that, you know what, you need to do something about housing. Because I know it's been a discussion within whether it's RPF or even the government of Rwanda.
Yeah.
For years now, right? It kind of sounds to me like you were giving, through those discussions, you were giving, the governor like some kind of eureka moment of, oh my God.
It's not a eureka moment.
I'm just saying.
It's genuinely something that he might have been considering, but he hasn't then thought about it in the way it's impacting people. But the system in Rwanda, and I'm happy to know a fair amount of it, and the system in Uganda are two different systems, very different systems. The Rwandan state is heavily responsive to the needs of the Rwandan. That's a result of politics. It's a result of history. It's a result of the way the leadership in Rwanda has decided to manage the country. Uganda is also in the place it is because of a result of politics and a result of history. We are an incredibly diverse country, 52 different tribes. We're landlocked. We've had successful civil wars. And this is the first time we've been at peace for longer than 15 years. It's also the first time in our history that a constitutional order has survived this long. So there's always that ruminating flashback of, if we push through so many reforms so fast, the constitutional order can collapse. And if the constitutional order collapses, then the state doesn't survive. But
here we're talking about housing, my brother.
Yes, and that's the thing, because housing for many young people has to happen in Kampala. Kampala is Buganda's land. If you have to create land rights on Buganda's land, you have to negotiate that with Buganda, which is a powerhouse, a traditional powerhouse. So when you talk about elites, Buganda Kingdom has many of those elites. They would have to cede, either through the use of money or force, their land for you to build housing projects on them. And the way you go about that is very important. It's as important. If you use force, Buganda could reject it and perhaps even launch a rebellion against you, and you'd be away by the next 5 years. So that negotiation at all turns happens. But it's also the way, it's the management style of our leader, that, he tries to generate consensus from a lot more people. And sometimes, because he's trying to generate consensus from a lot of people, he's lulled into inaction. So a matter which is urgent could take a long time simply because of consensus building.
Can you, so you've given us kind of like the lay of the land in terms of 50 plus tribes, different power centers.
Yep.
You haven't even talked about the religious factions. How does Uganda how does it move forward? Right? So how do you, like, literally, because I can imagine it's almost like herding cats. It's impossible.
Well, and that's the thing, like, the magic of the dysfunction with Uganda is that it functions in its dysfunction. So when you look at if you look at it economically, for example, Uganda is one of the most successful African economies in terms of growth. We've grown at maybe 7% averagely over the last 20 years. If you look at it at size of GDP alone, we've been able to expand massively over the last 3 decades.
I guess my question is this.
Yeah.
I know all those numbers.
Yep.
Now imagine there was a semblance of function.
Yep. Maybe, and then so that's where we are. We are this epochal moment where the contest over the dysfunction and the function are slowly starting to come to the forefront. I believe, like, the last 3 years was the first time ever that people, not in a coordinated attempt by civil society or anything, launched this massive anti-corruption drive to say, can we target people who are corrupt? And they were doing it on their Twitter timelines. They were showing people's homes, how those things do not correspond with the amount of money they have. And the state wasn't yet capable of arresting people that had been reported on. So we've seen reforms, for example, in the Criminal Investigations Directorate, but it starts by catching the small fish and not going for the big fish yet. And many of my Rwandan friends are always, they don't understand this small, big fish, because you don't have small and big fish in Kigali.
We do.
Yeah, but here in Uganda, you pick up a person, you take Raymond, for example, 3/4 of Toro will show up at State House and say, this is our son. What are you doing? You've forgiven sons from all those other places. Why don't you forgive our son? So it's harder to execute those things. And I guess we've gotten to a point now where it's either reform or die for the NRM, which has been in power. And that message is becoming more clear every day.
And do you think that the NRM is able to reform, or will it die?
I do not want to make a prediction on the NRM. What I can say is...
no, but I'm just asking.
Yes.
I mean, you've said the choice. There's a
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Like,
and you know enough history.
Yeah.
You're right. You've been a child of the NRM. You were probably born during the NRM.
Yep.
So you know the players. You can give us an educated guess.
An educated guess. So first of all, the NRM is not attracting enough political talent for reform. The number of reformers in the NRM are so few. And because they are outgunned and outnumbered inside the NRM, they often have to move very quietly and carefully. So they have to lay their footsteps very carefully for them to be able to succeed. It's also that some of the new leaders of the NRM are getting more corrupt with more impunity than the previous ones who were there. So in a fight for power, the reformers just know how hard it is to reform when you don't have the power.
And you don't have the money.
Yes, but it's also the nature and structure of politics that for reform is a hard and painful process. And you must generate consensus from a lot of people to accept pain. And Uganda has not traditionally had...
For the greater good.
Yes.
To accept pain for the greater good.
Yes, for the greater good. So you haven't had that consensus of people willing to accept pain. If you start a speeding tickets thing in Uganda, in 2 weeks, 3/4 of Kampala will be up in arms and saying this thing doesn't work, we don't want to do it. You start a small reform like everyone must have a TIN number to which they register their taxes. We'll try and link this to your bank account so that we can see whether what's correspondent in your bank account is what we have at the tax body. People will fight it. So, and that's the crisis.
Both elite and non-elite.
Yes, that's a crisis of the reformers, that the reformers are so few, outnumbered and outgunned that they have to step. And they're also across the aisle. So there are reformers in the NRM, there are reformers in the opposition. They don't see eye to eye on so many things. They don't agree on, for example, constitutional order. They don't agree on political order. They don't agree on the place of civil and political rights. They don't agree on the future of Uganda itself. So it's very difficult to get a reform movement out of this. But I think that the NRM will have a Damascus moment. And this one I can give you, not just an educated guess, a lesson in history. They will have a Damascus moment where you've been in power for so long, and the lethargy that you've created by having power forces people that you've been governing over to ask difficult questions of you. We're seeing that with the CCM in Tanzania. We saw that with Jubilee in Kenya. And I think the NRM will have its Damascus moment in this coming 5 years if they win the election.
If they win the election?
If they win the election. You never know.
No, I mean, I've asked a few. I mean, Museveni is not in the business of losing elections.
That is true. That's true, but
since the 80s, he's not about that life.
Yeah, but so that's the thing. Like, immediately the NRM wins the election. If they don't embark on a reform project, they will meet a Damascus moment by the next election.
You think so?
Yes, they will meet a Damascus moment, inevitably.
And does that moment look like, will it be with Museveni at the helm, or does he have to be pushed aside to let the reformers have their day?
I don't know what will happen. What I know is that consistently he's making less and less administrative decisions.
You believe that?
Yes, he's making less and less administrative decisions. So there are a lot more people around him who are making decisions.
Who are those people?
And those decisions, I mean, the Speaker of Parliament has been making decisions. His wife, General Museveni, is making decisions. General MK has been making decisions in the army and the security services. The Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, is making decisions there. The Chief Justice himself has been making tons and tons of decisions on how judiciary should function, how the judiciary should relate with the law society. We've seen members of the NRM who are veterans of the NRM start to enforce some decisions on the nature of the party.
Like who?
There's General Jim Muhwezi, for example. Tumukunde has come back into elective politics. General Tafiri has been sort of holding the light out on the NRM and saying we need to do better.
So like when you mention these people,
yep.
For us who don't know, right? So we have a bunch of Rwandans who are watching this, and
yep.
even some Ugandans, West Africans. You mention these names and you say there's some people who are, some of the old guard is trying to create, but in what sense? How?
So one of the ways in which some of these things are happening is inaction. The inability for traditionally powerful NRM leaders to show up in defense of things that the NRM is doing is a loud message for the NRM. That, you'll take decisions and prominent members of the NRM will be absent.
Like which decisions?
Amendment of constitutions, for example. The amendment of the constitution to remove the age limit.
That was a while ago, right?
Yes, but there were many NRM members who you would have thought would be part of the fold and try and defend that decision that didn't show up. We've had more recently this anti-corruption probe on the Speaker of Parliament. The NRM has traditionally protected their political talent. Traditionally. This time round, you can clearly see there's this hands-off approach to protecting the Speaker of Parliament, which is, if she is said to be corrupt, then let there be an investigation, let that investigation give us results, and we work with those results. But we've also seen silently in the NRM, for example, at the SEC level, shocking things happening. That defeat, like I told you, in the NRM primaries, the defeat of what were stable and strong NRM politicians. The Honorable Mike Mukula, for example, was upstaged by someone called Calvin Echodo. Many Ugandans didn't know a thing about him until the day of the election. In Western Uganda, the Honorable Chris Baryomosi, a full minister, was upstaged by someone whose first name many people couldn't tell, and who genuinely, and I'm being honest with you, if you walked through a newsroom is where people know political talent, very few people would spot him and say, this is Mr. Janard, who is the head of the NRM in the West. And the NRM has been traditionally strong in the West, so the leader of the Western League of the NRM has traditionally been a stronghold in the party. So we've seen those upstarts. And this is why many people think there might be a guiding hand in the background, sort of quietly reforming the party and finding what people can we work with. Yes, what people can we work with, what people can we not work with. But Uganda is not just an NRM project. There's also pressure coming from the opposition. You have Robert Chagulanyi, Bobi Wine, who has had the support of many young people in urban areas who say he represents the anger that we have and he represents our push for change. And what many people thought had died with Kizza Besigye has been given new lease of life with him. And that's forced the NRM to make decisions that they previously would not have made. Yeah.
I guess my challenge, in the RPF, who's moving things. It's not a mystery. Here, it kind of seems like there's a hand. I've asked a few people, okay, but who is this person? Who's this mysterious hand? Is it Salim Saleh?
So, Sunny, the NRA is a guerrilla movement. That should tell you everything you need to know. Guerrilla warfare demands that you surprise your opponent at every turn.
But you get to know who the commanders are.
Yes. So yes. Okay, let's say, who are the power centers? General Salim Saleh is a power center in the NRM. He has been holding a foothold on the economic aspirations of the NRM. So whether it was the Operation Wealth Creation, Parish Development Model, all of those were his ideas and his ability to marshal the civil service to say, this is the direction we want to take. General Muhoozi Kainerugaba has, for the first time in a long time, taken the security establishment away from the president. This is the first time in a really long time that we've seen the president not worried about what's happening in the security sector. And that is an indication that, he's doing something there. We've seen...
And when you talk about the security, if I may,
Yeah.
you mean both the army, because security services, it's the
army and the police.
And the intelligence.
Yes, and the intelligence
So
services.
Are you saying that he's kind of he kind of runs that whole thing?
Yeah, to a fair amount, he does run it. Uganda, as you might know, is engaged in South Sudan. We're engaged in the DRC. He's the head of the army, so he's overseeing those two operations, but he's also overseeing the army operations here. And we've seen him with the arrest, for example, of the intelligence chiefs that happened recently. He was heavily involved in the constitution of the team that did those arrests. It's the last time such a high-profile arrest happened, it was General Tinyefuza. And when he was arrested, it was very clear that Museveni had been involved. It was a fight between Museveni and General Sejusa. This time, it's very clear that it's General Museveni who's involved in that. So you can't take away that fact. It's also that he now has a civic political outfit called PLU, which is like a whipping cane for the NRM. Members of the PLU campaign sometimes for NRM candidates, other times against NRM candidates. And that's something to see.
Which is very strange. It's the son going up against the father, almost.
Maybe that's one way to look at it. But also, the First Lady is a power center in our country. You can't run away from that. Members of the civil service have often come from her selection. She has a very powerful hold over religious institutions and a powerful hold over the civil service. So those decisions come from her. So those are power centers that you must genuinely recognize about the running of the country. Then you have people like the Kabaka of Buganda, largest single land owner in the country. He would be very influential if you want any land reform. If you want to fix the city, you can't buy meters of land without getting into his land. And he's known to be a reformer. He's known to be forward-thinking, but he's also known to not be on good terms with the NRM.
Which doesn't make sense because you'd think that he's someone you'd want on your side.
Yeah, it's just a perception. We don't think it's true. It's a perception that many people have, that him and the NRM are consistently at loggerheads with each other. But he's been almost a sort of a lone voice in saying, we need a constitutional order in this country. He's been a lone voice many times in saying you need to respect civil and political rights. You need to allow for political competition and for opposition members to...
I've never heard him speak, though.
He speaks like twice a year, but he has a traditional address that he does at the end of the year at the Kuka, and that's like a guiding light for people. Yeah.
That is so...
But he's also done many initiatives around cancer, around unemployment, around agriculture.
Before we started the conversation, you were telling me that, and this will probably happen, this conversation will probably come out, so I'm not breaking any news, that your next guest will be the head of the World Food Program.
Yes.
Of Uganda, and what you're trying to do is kind of push school feeding.
Yep.
And I had asked you off camera, why would a foreigner come and why would you need a foreigner to push a fundamentally domestic issue, which is, can our kids in school have nutritious food?
Yep.
A nutritious meal. And then you kind of said that Sunny, you don't understand. You know what I mean? And you on one side you've painted a picture of understandable spheres of influence, of power, whether it's the First Lady, the son, the father, his uncle, the Chief Justice, the Kabaka. So it does sound like there's a understandable there's an understandable center of power here, even though it's not one.
Yep. It's not absolute that's the only thing.
But for something like that, say
school feeding.
School feeding.
Yep.
why don't those power centers, why is it so difficult to just advocate for something as simple as that? Why does it have to be a UN agency coming on Raymond's podcast trying to tell government, please feed your children?
No, so I think that when you look at policy in Uganda, you have to start from the point that the government sets out without as much fiscal legroom as many people think it does. So you don't have enough money for the amount of policy that you want to implement. Uganda wants railways, it wants roads, it wants education, free education, it wants free healthcare, but only 1.7 million of us pay taxes. And that taxes is less than 40% of the entire budget that the government has to work with. So people in government understand that the failure of the policy also means that someone with bigger pockets has to come in. And even on what you might think are mundane, small things, people from the outside coming in with their money are important for policy to succeed. And it's also that from a policy standpoint, our politics is where we generate anger, but the civil service is where people generate the policy that we will eventually have the day of night. So the civil service will generate a policy and bring it to the politicians, and the politicians will go on different sides of the debate. And normally how policy would get passed is that the NRM will call a caucus and they will whip people into a line, and then the policy will pass. So a matter like school feeding, genuinely, morally, everyone starts out saying, yes, we need food for children. But those are 11 million children. That's almost the entire population of Rwanda. And you've got to give 55 million meals every day. This is a government during COVID-19 that couldn't distribute 100,000 meals a day in the city center. So you can realize that the embers that hold the government from doing things like that. So traditionally, partners are important because partners have probably done it elsewhere. So they come in with technical know-how. 2, they come in with money, which is very important to give government fiscal legroom. And 3, they also come in with a sense of an outsider issue. So if the policy fails, it was their policy, not our policy.
But why does that? There's a Kinyarwanda word that we like to use, agaciro.
Yes.
Dignity.
Yes.
Self-worth.
Yep.
When there's certain things that you're supposed to do for yourself.
True.
Feed your kids.
True.
Is fundamentally.
Yes.
It is. It's yours.
It is. The First Lady has spent 8 years of her life openly telling people, you must contribute to the feeding of your children. And she's been labeled a Marie Antoinette. She's been called all kinds of names. One time she said, you must buy a food flask for your children. And the reason that things like that hold is because the areas where it's just poverty. There's very nail-biting poverty. And this is why I always tell you, because I understand the two systems, Rwanda and Uganda, it's easy for me to see where the differences are.
Because we're poor too, huh?
Yes, but a thing like a gachiro is a citizen drive. In Uganda, you haven't had that level of citizen commitment
to their own self-worth. It's not like we're not asked. It's not the government. It's you. It's as a human being.
Yeah. So maybe let me just historicize the problem. In 1995, when we got our constitution, it was a liberal moment. This, the liberal world, which is the government is a welfare government. It will provide health, it will give you education, it will give you everything. You just have to sit back. And the NRM was huge on that liberal world. They eliminated graduated tax and said, you know what, we'll just work with income taxes. They got a lot of aid to be able to do the kinds of work they were doing. So citizen engagement in the governance project was not heavily encouraged because it was also looked at as the place where consensus could be generated for rebellion. The polar opposite in Kigali is after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, there was this massive reawakening amongst civilians to say, one, I must have dignity of my own, then I must have a sense of community. So it's not just Agachiro, but you also have a sense of community. Sunny, here in Uganda, I can live 8, 9, 10 months without knowing the person next door, without ever talking to them, without us ever getting involved. Can we go and clean the road? Can we talk about these children we see in the community? And I think that's the outcome of both sides of the divide, that, in Kigali, you've had this massive upturn in citizen engagement in the government project, which we haven't had. And that has different results everywhere. So when I say understand the differences, I genuinely mean it. You see it like there are us Ugandans who traditionally come to Rwanda more often. We will drive from here to Kabale, overtaking on the wrong side of the road, running 140 kilometers above the speed limit. The moment your passport is stamped and you cross the border, you fall in line because you now realize this is a different community. And that is the sense of there are sanctions if I behave out of the way this community behaves. That sense we don't have here. That here,
it's freedom.
No one's going to sanction you for driving on the wrong side of the road. I mean, today you are moving around the city. You saw that. No one's going to sanction you for not delivering on projects. I've been fighting with the city authority. They were celebrating delivering 3 kilometers of road after 3 years. That basically means you are delivering 1 kilometer every year. How do you put that out as a praise tweet? But that sense of community is not there. So, I mean, we've got to get to that point where citizen engagement in the affairs of their government grows. But because we've traditionally come from that point where citizen engagement in affairs of government is also seen as rebellion to the state, and therefore it's treated from a security angle. So we're different in that regard. We're really different in that regard. Yeah.
There seems to be, for me, a disconnect between two types of young people. There are those who enjoy brunches and day parties.
I see where you are going.
At places like, I just discovered them. Malfi. Is it Malfi? Malfi.
Malfi is the branch.
Yeah.
1420 is the club.
There you go.
Yeah.
And those, when I was joking with some, they're like, we want to protect the gains. And then there are those other young people, same age. And those young people drive boda-bodas. They hustle. Now their thinking is, we want to remove a dictator. But these two groups have to figure out a way to coexist in a peaceful Uganda. How do you, with these two kind of forces, right? So I guess it's the force of change and the force for keep things the way they are.
The way they are, yeah.
How do they ensure that despite their different views, they keep in the front of their mind that we're all Ugandans? We sink or we float on the same ship, and I want you to talk about that. And in the knowledge that this is not just a Ugandan problem, it's also a conversation that we have back home between what we'd call the Bachire, the rich, and the Bachene, the poor. I want you to kind of unpack that. And how do we build a country for both?
Interesting. Both my thesis at undergrad and masters were on wealth redistribution, and I never found an answer, so I don't think I will come up with an answer for this. Sunny, you've got to understand the Ugandan economy. It's a complex economy in the sense that it has rewarded some people massively and it's punished some people terribly.
I saw that.
Yes,
Some
more often
really enjoy this economy.
Yes, more often than not, the simple determinant of whether you succeed or not is access. You go out there, the people riding borders, the people serving you at branches, they are as educated as you are, more often than not from the same university, more often than not probably with a better degree than you do. But the difference between you and them might just be access, that
who you're
born to, which area you were born in, and how that turned out in life. So the first form of wealth in Uganda when we became a state was the railway. And the railway, everywhere that the railway stopped became a city or a sort of town. So now when you speak about the traditional regions of Uganda and their cities, it's those places where the railway stopped. And it's those places that became prominent and powerful. There were also places where there had been civilizational kingdoms. Toro, for example. Rwenzori was another of the same, Buganda. And when the post-independence project of development started, then we had this contest. Do you run a communist country? Do you run a capitalist country? We attempted communism in this country for a very short, brief period of like 2 years under Obote. It didn't work. Obote was overthrown. We went into a dictatorial government of Idi Amin, which was authoritarian, and then the Museveni government, which has been decidedly capitalist. Now, in a capitalist economy, it's a free market. It's a free market. You can sell your goods as and when you wish, but you must own the means of production to be able to do that. So, Sunny, if I graduate with you, same class, and my father just happened to have a ranch of cows, you and I are not setting off from the same starting line. And therefore, our finish line cannot be the same. And that's really what happened. So the economy has been very punitive. And it's been very punitive. And the movement system, the NRM, and its economists have sort of said, the market will fix this problem. The market will fix this problem. Like, you work hard, you ride your border. If you ride well, hard enough, 10 years, you never know. And they are outliers of success, One of those outliers of success is our current opposition candidate, Bobi Wine. Started out selling grasshoppers. Now he owns mansions, a beach, and everything. He's an outlier. He's not the traditional story of Uganda. So many people do not make it. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that the people who've been fortunate enough in the economy do not realize what their role is for society. So there's very little social entrepreneurship happening geared towards, can we get people who do not have access to get into the money economy and also be successful? Two is the complete failure and the complete refusal of people who have access to relate with people who have no access. And
when you say relate, what do you mean?
Just have a functional relationship. So people do not have relationships with their border people. It's just, get me from here to there. Don't tell me your problems. Don't tell me anything else. It's the treatment of maids and nannies in town, It's the treatment of people who just don't have enough, It's a very, very bad place. And it's not the full story, because there's also a whole movement of people who are heavily invested in, my border guy has a wedding, I'm going to contribute to that, I'm going to do this. But it's just not enough. So there are very little interventions in the economy geared towards getting people without access to have access. And people with access do not see that as a political problem. That is where the problem is. So the branch you entered, for example, minimal spend per table is probably about 5-6 million shillings. I would beg you to ask your waiters how much they earn in salary.
No, to be honest, It was.
And that's not a Kampala problem.
It's everywhere. And I guess the question then becomes is, okay, we're all in this boat together, right? And can we at least see the humanity in each other? You're right. And can we be kind? Right? So like, okay, fine, you're privileged, but don't step on me.
Yeah.
That's all I ask.
You're going to find it very hard to find that kind of consensus in Kampala. 2 years ago, a whole leader, this would never happen in Rwanda, definitely. The IGG told people,
the Inspector General of Government,
yes, broadly, if I fall sick today, the president is going to charter a plane for me. I will fly out of this country. I will get good medical care. You will not.
Was there a lesson in this, or what was she trying to say?
She was basically trying to say, you people need to fight corruption harder than I fight it, because I am protected in some form, manner, or way. That would never happen. But so there's this complete lack of political responsibility for the problem. You mentioned the speaker.
I mean, I didn't, but now you
now I have. Anyway, you drove by the speaker's home.
Yes.
She drives a convoy of 6 cars, a distance of 1 kilometer, to get from her home to the Parliament of Uganda. The total amount of that convoy, which includes 2 Range Rovers and 2 Land Cruisers, is north of 5 billion shillings.
That's give or take about $1.5 million.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. No, yes.
Yeah, $1.5
million, yeah.
Yes. Why? For what purpose?
I mean, you guys say that you're poor, but obviously you're not.
Yeah, for what purpose? And politicians just do not see the brink at which society is with these aggressive displays of wealth. You're launching a home with 100 rooms in a country where majority young people educated cannot afford a house, or that you have campaigns where people are dishing out cash at free will, and people are asking themselves, what industry are you engaged in, so that we can also engage in that industry to sort of get the outcome?
No, I understand. Okay, again, we started this off camera, obviously, and I'm not here to point and you children, you Ugandans, you need to change. And because we have our challenges back home as well, right? It's the way we're trying to balance that. It's also a discussion, whether it's on social media, whether it's even in the upper echelons of government and the RPF. So it was shocking, even for me, and I like to believe that I have a stake in this country as well. But it was shocking. It was, and what I worry about as a Rwandan, because I will see the conversations on Twitter, for example.
Yeah. And
I worry for my people, like actual Ugandan Banyarwanda. Some of the comments you'll see is, these guys are eating our country. And it's these guys.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah. So and on this one, I'm probably one of the most angry Ugandans for it. There's this externalization of Uganda's problem to Banyarwanda, It's, first of all, Banyarwanda are Ugandans. There is a constitution formed in 1995 that recognizes a tribe called Banyarwanda. They're Ugandans. Even if they were not Ugandan, our destinies are tied. We are the same. The things a Ugandan craves are no different from the things a Rwandan craves. We have a shared destiny and a shared future. We even have, in many cases, shared histories.
I'm literally half Ugandan, half
shared
Banyarwanda.
Histories. Exactly. I mean, I can't talk about the things my dad did for the RPF, but there's a shared history there. So every time people externalize this problem, they find someone that's easy to blame. And it's very easy to externalize that problem and say, it's Banyarwanda, the ones causing this problem. But it's not true to start with.
They're taking the money to build,
it's not true.
There are stadiums and roads over there.
No, it's not true. One, it's not true that we're governed by Rwandans. That myth needs to die. It really needs to die, and it needs to go to bed completely. We are governed by Ugandans. It's not true that Banyarwanda are the ones successful in the Ugandan system. The most successful people in the system are often Ugandans and Asian Ugandans. They are also Ugandan. So we need to take responsibility for where we are, other than externalize the problem and say, this is who is benefiting from the cause and this is who's not. Other times, people use it to demobilize the community of Banyarwanda, because they also have their own genuine grievances as a tribe in Uganda. The same way Batoro have genuine grievances, the Bachiga would have genuine grievances. They have genuine grievances on land ownership, land rights. They have genuine grievances on underrepresentation. And those are not taken serious. But it's also that some people take advantage of that and say, I'm the leader of the Banyarwanda in Uganda. And then they use very incendiary language to sort of represent that community. And that incendiary language, you've got to be, I don't know, I don't want to use an uncharitable French word.
No, you have
but
to.
You've got to be very stupid to not see what incendiary language that RTLM did to Rwandans. You've just got to, you're just 30 years detached from that reality. So sometimes people have got to stand up and get the courage to say, no, this is not true. And that is what happened when Uganda and Rwanda had a tiff. So many people within the Ugandan security establishment had this idea that, Banyarwanda are mobilizing to take over the Ugandan state. And it had to be broken by Ugandans saying, this is a problem with the Ugandan security. Do not externalize it onto Rwandans. And I think that we've gotten somewhere. It's not really the best place, but we are far away from where we were before, where people just pointed out and said, these Banyarwanda are the problem. We've really gotten somewhere.
There's someone that you love to tweet about, and that's your beautiful daughter.
Yes.
As you write, she's in full control. She's the general.
She's in charge of the household.
She's
merely a subservient individual there.
Now, as a young father, I'm a father of two boys. Yeah. You want your child to live in a world that allows for that child's full development. You want that child to be able to live up to their own potential. And that's what I hope for my children, and I'm sure it's the same for you. Mm-hmm. What keeps you up at night when you think about her future?
Gosh, there are many things that keep me up at night. I think that the first and most important is will this remain a stable and functional unit of administration for a long period of time? We've seen what happened to Sudan. We saw what happened to Rwanda in 1994. To our other side of the border, you have the DRC. We see what's happening there. So the most immediate and most important thing is, no matter the amount of grievance and disagreements, can we remain one stable administrative unit? And that's very important for a sense of heritage for our children, a sense of heritage for us, and a sense of unity and purpose. Now, that's not to be conflated with protecting the gains. No. That is, there must be a stable administrative state. If you're in the opposition and you want to assume the state, there must be a state for you to assume in the first place. So that keeps me up at night. That's because my grandfather fought a war. Actually, my great-grandfather fought against the colonial government in Toro. My grandfather fought a war. My father fought a civil war. I'm the first male in my family for 3 decades who's not had to get into an active war. It's not the same for my friends in northern Uganda. Many of them had to fight or escape fighting because the fighting there ended recently. But it's something that's alive. But we could descend into our history. What was our history? So it keeps me up alive. The next thing that keeps me up is this sheer lack of political responsibility across our political elite. So many people in Kampala hold political office, but say they do not have power. So you ask a traffic officer, can you stop that man from driving on the wrong side of the road? And the guy will say, but the minister is driving on the wrong side of the road. But that's your job. Stop this one. When the minister comes, stop him too. So that lack of political responsibility from the political elite keeps me up. Income inequality, I dedicated 2 theses to this. In Uganda, in numbers terms, our inequality is reducing. But when you walk around the city, it is very clear. The line between the haves and the have-nots is perfect in the ground. It's really perfect. You know who can access good healthcare, who can access good education, and who cannot. That's a line in the sand. And if we don't have a governance outcome that fixes those things, then we'll have a problem. But I equally want, and I hope that, our forefathers, the Kagames, the Musevenis, they fought for a sense of East African unity. We have to continue that dream in some form, manner, or way. So can we have a single currency maybe? Can we do away with these borders if possible? Can we be able to travel across these borders in a borderless way? Can we be able to see that we have a shared sense of destiny and purpose and engage in that? Those things keep me up at night. I toss and turn and say, maybe this thing needs to be done better. Maybe this thing needs to be done better. But I guess that I also don't despair so much because I keep saying my daughter's challenges will be her challenges. I've got my own fight now to fight, and that's I am engaged in my fight at the moment. I will give her maybe a more decent life than my parents gave me, and my parents gave me a very decent life, so I'll give her slightly more decent life, and I hope that she can pass that on to her children.
So that we can end this on some kind of optimistic tone.
There's a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah, I want to hear it because in probably the next Museveni administration, because let's be honest, he's winning the next elections. We all know.
We will wait for the election the results.
No, we know what's happening. And there's going to be, going to start pumping oil.
Yeah.
So that could potentially change everyone's life. And that's not just Uganda, but also Rwanda as well, because I think it goes both 2 ways. If Uganda sneezes, we could potentially catch a cold. But if, inshallah, it goes the other way, you stop sneezing.
Yeah.
A lot of the wealth, I think, there could be huge knock-on effects on our economy because, we are fundamentally a small country that's surrounded by much larger ones.
Yeah.
So as a Rwandan, I want you to do well. Not only want, I need you to do well.
There's a lot of pressure on us now.
No. But it is what it is, right?
There's a lot of pressure on us. Yeah.
But I think it's good pressure.
Yeah.
Do you see a political class, maybe an emerging political class that is up to that challenge? Maybe that's why I want to leave this with a little bit of optimism. Do you see a new generation of people being able to manage that oil wealth, being able to manage the demographic bulge that you're right in the middle of, and therefore also benefit us back home in Rwanda?
Yes, the quick answer is yes. Uganda has so many things going its way.
So much.
Despite many things not going on, there's so many things going its way. One is there's this growth in manufacturing. We are now emerging from what was an agrarian economy into a manufacturing economy. That's the second stage of development amongst many countries. 2, we've got oil wealth coming, which we're going to invest in a sovereign fund. If well managed, the outcomes could be immense. 3 is we've got these massive infrastructure projects on which we and our neighbors agree on, whether it's a railway, for example, massive highways, even just productive capacity. We agree with our neighbors that the electoral area is, this East African community is a place that will work for us. And then I think that the other thing that's going great for Uganda is, unlike many other nations, you have a host of educated Ugandans, literate Ugandans. You can't take that away. Anywhere you turn in Uganda, even in the villages, there are people who can read, there are people who can write. That's a massive upturn in labor. Many of the Ugandans working or performing labor in the Middle East right now are only able to do that because they're able to do these small things of literature. They can write, they can read, they can interpret circumstances. Now, I think that for me, the thing that will just turn that around is either we have a Damascus moment in the NRM, in which the NRM says, the way we governed Uganda before cannot be the way we govern the future Uganda. And that consensus has to come from within the NRM. Or the NRM collapses into many other units in which newer consensus is formed on this is the new Uganda, which is forward-looking, not backward-looking. And that can have a massive upturn. There are many lessons we can pick from the RPF, for example, from CCM in Tanzania. We can pick lessons from Jubilee in Kenya on what happened or didn't happen for them. But also, I think we are at that point where some things are inevitable. Museveni will go. It's inevitable. Maybe a decade, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades, he will not be here. We will have to figure these things out by ourselves. Many Ugandans have this idea that, once we change and get a new government, everything magically improves. I've lived in Kenya. I've seen governments come and go, and things either magically get worse than before or get slightly better. So it's also very likely that you can change and things don't get better. And that's the more people appreciate that things we can change and things don't get better, the more we put in the work. And for me, I would love to see a lot more work. There are a lot more Ugandans now who believe in Project Uganda. They are not partisan yet. They believe in Project Uganda. And those are the anchors of good development.
Phew. Thank God that you've ended that with a bit of positivity.
Yeah, you and I will be in Kachiro, as you know, my daughter has a heritage there. We'll be here maybe 40 years down the road saying, look how well this went from what we thought it would be.
I certainly, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yes.
Raymond, thank you so much for joining me on the long phone.
Thank you so much for coming by.
It's been months in the planning.
Yes.
I was supposed to get you in Kigali, and then somehow you
I was in Kigali.
And then you slipped through my fingers.
Yeah.
But I think by us having this conversation here and allowing me to kind of experience Kampala and all its, and I've been here, close to 5 days.
Yeah.
5 days or so. I thought I knew Kampala. I thought I was able to fully understand the discussion, the online discourse. I was able to read the newspapers, watch the TV channels on YouTube. But feeling this, seeing seeing the boda-boda and people making food on the streets and then talking to people and going to the high-end restaurants, and it's very complex, and I think the people of Uganda and the leadership of Uganda are in a fight for their lives because it's a monster. And again, like I said, we need you to succeed.
Everywhere in the world, everyone is in a fight for their lives.
But this one is.
No, don't worry, we'll be well. will be well.
Listen, we need you to be well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sadi.
Thank you so much for joining me, Raymond. And hopefully I'll get an invite for...
the next cup of coffee. You're invited. Yes. Right here, right now.
Asante.
Right here, right now. I hope I'm invited to long form. This is even better.
Always.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Raymond.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for today's conversation. Thanks for staying with us till the very end. It really means a lot. I'd love to know, what was the one moment that really stood out to you? Drop it in the comments so that we can keep the discussion going. If you want to connect with us beyond YouTube or streaming platforms, you can find us on the social media platform of your choice. And if this has sparked something for you, share it with a friend who'd love it too. Until next time, have a great week.